Hey, hey, what do you know? What do you say? It's Tony from the 724 here, and this is that episode of Into the Pit that I promised you. This little car up here is just here for the sexy value. This is a 63 Ford Galaxy that I did some time back, sitting on an H&R frame. The front wheels and tires were from a different model kit, and the flames on the side were from a different model kit other than the Galaxy. I made the skirts white as an offset color. I just kind of like doing it that way. I like giving them colored headlights too. That's just a thing of mine. Those stripes were a whole lot of fun. I don't know what sadistic person came up with the idea of putting them on the transfer, only connecting where they cross over one another. It was like trying to untangle spaghetti, and somehow managed to do it without busting them up. They all laid perfect for me. Those antennas on the back will be the first thing to break off. Anywho, so I said I was going to talk about the cars, and I'm going to try to keep this pretty focused because I want these videos to be short, and I want them to have plenty of information in them so that whenever people want to reference back, they don't have to hunt through a bunch of BS. So, first things first, I got to back up just a hair and give you some BS. In the fall of 2019, myself and a few friends were looking for something to do over the long, cold Pennsylvania winter once football season was over. And we wanted it to not involve going and sitting in bars. So my girlfriend Kelly came up with the bright idea to take my Carrera 1/24 scale slot car track and turn it into a drag strip. So we figured if you're gonna make a street race car, you got to start out with basically a stock car and turn it into a race car, right? So we started off with an H&R chassis. This is an example one. They're $50, and for the money you can't get more bang for your buck. You get 2 axles, 4 wheels, 4 tires, brass adjustable chassis. You get a motor, and you get a couple of gears you're going to throw away. We realized pretty quickly that if you were going to make them go any faster, you have to be able to put taller gears in them. And in order to fit taller gears in them, we had to make modifications to the frame with a Dremel tool. Now your H&Rs, they're 1/8 inch axle car, and they use 48 pitch gears. And by the way, the little situation you're looking at there was simply I needed to put a little bit of a shim under one side of the motor to get it to tilt because of the bevel of the gears on the crown. Really just required it. It wanted that thing to be on a tilt. So one of the biggest challenges into putting one of these cars together is finding these tall 48 pitch crown gears. They were made in the 60s and early 70s and then lost popularity for whatever reason. And I guess that's whenever they went over to 64 pitch gears for the taller crowns. So you got to go out and search these out. They're out there. You just got to look. And that's how we found them. And we have a pretty big variety going all the way from 42 teeth up to 48 teeth. Our plastic track really requires us to use the silicone tires or urethane tires. In the case of H&Rs, that would be silicone. And you see you have the thinner ones on the front and the bigger ones in the back. They go by a prefix lettered designation for each chassis, and then there's a number designation on the end. This is the 05. It has a 40,000 RPM motor in it and silicone tires all around. It's the only model that does. And we get those because if you get the wide tires and you can't get them underneath your car, then you can take these tires and put them on the back of the car and change over to a situation like this. Sometimes when you get models, they come with an axle and wheels that'll take the axle so that the front wheels will free spin. Sometimes you even get all four. And when I do, I always save them just for situations like this. I had to put the thinner tires on the back in order to fit it underneath the car. So it got model wheels on the front. It was probably out of an entirely different kit. And it also took some of the weight out because they're lighter. Now, as I said, we tend to use old crown gears because the only way to find ones that are tall enough to race with drag-wise is to go with the older ones. The newer 48 pitch gears are all made for circle track, and they're usually around 29 to 31 teeth. This is a 48 and is a personal favorite of mine. And you'll notice that this, though it's a 40, is a little taller than that 48. That middle one is a 40. And the one over here on the right, that's a 44. And it's smaller than both of them. Now your H&R wheels are 27 millimeters high. The silicone, whether it's front or rears, are both 27 millimeters high. There's what it looks like in relation to that 48. So the 48 has enough clearance that you can run it with that tire. The 40 does not. I mean, it is barely enough. If you don't set it just right, it'll drag on the metal rails. And then you got your 44 here. And it has enough room. Now, so that makes this 48 basically the biggest thing that you can run with that tire. And this 40, like I said, it's barely, like, I'm running it with these tires on the frame I just showed you over here. And that's what the clearance actually looks like. So it is really tight. And here was where we started running into problems. We found bigger, taller gears. There's a 42 on the left that's way bigger than the silicone tire is, and there's a 48 that's also bigger than that silicone tire is. So we had to go over to ProTrack tires. And that got us up and going. Problem was, those foamy tires did nothing but spin on that plastic track. These are urethane replacement tires for these ProTrack foamies. They're made by a fellow up in Canada. We just discovered him. I just got these in, and we haven't had time to test them out yet, but I'm assuming that they're probably going to change the game for those cars that have the big tires on them. Here's another heavily modified H&R of mine. It has the model wheels on the front. It has that 48 on the back. I think that is a 12-tooth pinion gear on a 30,000 RPM Carrera motor. And it's H&R size wheels, but the tires are urethane, and they were made by that same fellow up there in Canada. We're going to try those out. This is actually the chassis for the SOB. We're going to see how that works next race. So, since we started out with the H&R format, and that was what we messed with for the longest time when we first got started, we decided that all of our specs will follow their base platform. So, all of our cars have to be 1/8 inch axle, 48 pitch gears, and pretty much the rest of it is pretty fair game. There's not a whole lot you can do that would be considered illegal. If you can figure out how to put a CO2 cartridge on it and pop it and make that thing go down the track like a jet car, hey, you knock yourself out. Now here's a couple examples of motors that I wish would have worked, but they required too much ampage. This is a Detroit Hustler that's been rebuilt. This is a big block 550 from Pro Slot. Neither one of those will budge on our track. So how do you know if your motor will work? Well, I'm going to show you. These are the batteries I use to test with. The reason I go for the Energizer Max is anything less than that, and you'll test 2 or 3 motors and it'll already be wore out. I've been testing motors on this thing for months. Now, let's see if I can hold the camera and do this at the same time. I'm going to have to readjust the camera. Give me just a second. You just take your chassis or your motor. You can do this on just a motor as well. And you touch it on the brushes, and it turns those wheels. It'll work on the track. Alright, that brings me to the last thing I wanted to show y'all. I debated on whether I was going to do this or not, but you hear me talking about the homespun frames. Well, some of the things that I've done, like I went over to Lowe's and I got this. It's 1/8 inch rod. You can get 48 inches of it to make axles out of. I make my own frames. I start out with, I found these on eBay, and I start out with these. They're made out of aluminum. They're real super light. You got your mounts for your axles, and you got the engine basket. And I cut them, and then they look like this. This one's barely lengthened. I just had to put about an extra 1/4 of an inch on it. And I got this over at Lowe's as well. This is aluminum. Again, buy 48 inches of it. Make a whole bunch of frames out of it. This is one that's finished. See? And to make these little sides here to hold the body on, these parts, a buddy of mine found me these. They're made out of aluminum. They're just got little numbers on them. A whole box of them. I must have 500 of these things. And you can take them and set them on the edge of the table and go like that and make yourself the angle you want. They're pretty perfect for the job. And what I put everything together with is this. Gorilla Clear Grip. It's a rubber based, and it's one of your typical Gorilla products. It holds real well. And I use it actually to build my models with, because if you want to take the glass back out of something and the chrome back out of something so that you can repaint it, if you take an X-Acto knife to it, you can get it to come loose and pry loose, whereas like super glue you can't do it, and a lot of the other cements you can't do it. And I realized that it was probably the easiest way for me to put those aluminum pieces together. And I have had frames that I've put together that way that I've been racing for the past 2 years. So as far as strength goes, there's plenty of it there. And then whenever I'm done and you get your axle on and your axles in and your wheels on, then you can go ahead and just align your wheels and get everything to run straight. So hopefully this answers a lot of the questions that everybody wanted to know about how to build one of these cars. In the end, the way we did what we did and the reasons we did what we did was to keep these cars affordable. The cars for the bigger drag strips, they'll start out at $150. We top out at $150. And when I tell you it took me doing literally everything to a car I could to get it to $150, I'm not kidding. I started with an H&R $50 chassis and then stripped everything off of it and aftermarketed everything going up. So you should be able to build a car that's competitive for $100 or less. So let's go over the check sheet. Number 1, car got to be rigid framed, no tube frames. Number 2, it's got to be hard bodied, 1/24th or 1/25th scale plastic model body with chrome and glass installed. It has to have a 1/8 inch axle, It has to have 48 pitch gears, no glue on the tires of any kind, no adhesive. And last but not least, you can test it with a 9-volt battery to make sure it'll work. If you'd like to send a car to be proxy raced, you can send it to Slotrods, care of Tony Mollick at 1124 St. Clair Street, Latrobe, PA, USA 15650. Include as much information as you can about yourself, and if you have a particular driver in mind to pull the trigger for you, please include your 2 favorite drivers in order of preference, and we'll do the best we can to accommodate. Please also include whether you want to enter your car in the spring tournament, the 4th of July tournament, the end of summer tournament, the Halloween shootout, or any combination of the above. Slotrods, nor any of its creators or cast, is responsible for any damage to your car from shipping or racing. Race at your own risk. If your car malfunctions, we'll attempt to tech it for you and keep you racing. To have your car returned to you, include return postage in the form of a postal money order only, along with your return address, and your car or its remains will be returned to you after the Halloween shootout. Music for the intro to Into the Pit was written by Tony Mollick and Sean King for Synesthesia. Our outro is Vicious by Rawheads. On our next episode of Into the Pit, we will tell you all about the track and how to build one like we race on. So until next time, we'll see you at the next race. This has been a production of Slotrods.
The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. No sleeping allowed, yo, you just get a glance. Don't try to swing game, yo, just let the girl dance. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. You can watch a show blow from a distance, but give her some space, son, let the girl dance.